Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back to BTM, your basketball time machine, the show with former NBA players about former NBA players. Before I'm going to introduce today's guest, just a little reminder, if you want to hear more podcasts like this one, just make sure you hit that subscribe button and also click on the notifications button so you always get notified once we upload a new video. Today's guest played in the NBA in the early 90s for the Indiana Pacers, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Utah Jazz. Shawn Green, welcome to the show.
Hey, nice to be here. Nice to be here. Thanks a lot.
Shawn, do you remember the first jersey number you wore? And I'm not talking about professional basketball. I'm actually talking, childhood.
Okay, childhood, which is funny. Okay, it was for a CYO team, and the CYO is the Christian Catholic Youth Organization, CYO. And it was for a church called St. Rita's Catholic Church, and it was actually number 23. And I didn't even choose it. I just
was given to you?
Kind of stuck with it. Yeah, it was given to me, number 23, and I was like, okay. And from then on, I used it in college, and I switched to 30 at one point because Bernard King was a New York Knick, and he was wearing 30.
Yes.
So I had 30 for a hot second on some alternative uniforms for 2 games in high school, but most of the time it was number 23.
All right, two very good numbers. You just mentioned Bernard King. Was he one of your favorite players from back in the days, or was he the favorite player?
No, the thing was I was more like Dr. J, Michael Jordan, players like that. But the thing is, when I was coming up, we always looked up to just professional players, and it was New York. We were exposed to the New York Knicks and the New Jersey Nets. So it was Bernard King, New York Knicks. It was like Louis Orr, Trent Tucker. There was players that were so obscure that people didn't even realize because, there wasn't cable. So all you saw Dr. J, you saw Larry Bird, you saw Magic Johnson, and we saw New York Knicks because those are the people that were on television the majority of the time. And you got exposed to the other teams if those those 4 teams were playing, like say if they were playing Milwaukee. Because remember back when I was coming up, the NBA wasn't as big as a product as it was in the 90s or as it is today. There was, they were showing games on tape delay. So I would wake up at like 11 o'clock at night and tune in to see games that have happened at 7 o'clock. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it was like that. So it was almost on his way out. And one of my mentors, Mark Jackson, when he first got into the NBA, he was only making like $75,000 a year.
Okay, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was, they weren't, it wasn't as big as it is now. And, with the collective bargaining agreement and the revenue share and all that stuff. But yeah, so it's come a long way. I'm glad to see that it's so popular now.
All right. Did you have a favorite team back in the days?
Yeah, I was a Lakers fan because I was born in Venice Beach, and I'm born in Santa Monica, but grew up in Venice Beach, and it was the Lakers all day, and hated the Celtics because there was always that rivalry, Lakers-Celtics, But that's why this year when, LeBron went to the Lakers, I was like, okay, now I can start liking the Lakers again and not be, called a bandwagon. You just following LeBron around, So, but yeah, it was always the Lakers. Magic Johnson, Kareem, Jamal Wilkes, Norm Nixon, Showtime Lakers. That's where I wanted to be. I wanted to get drafted to that actual franchise.
Well, that would have been great, huh? You just mentioned the draft. So you were drafted in 1991 by the Pacers with the 14th pick in the second round. Did you work out for the Pacers before?
What's funny is this is what happened. I had a lot of interest from, like Philly, Washington, Minnesota. Minnesota actually contacted me after my sophomore year in college, and that was their first year as an expansion team. But I never worked out for Indiana. I did a workout. We used to go to Long Island And Wally Zerbiak's father used to run a workout in Hempstead, and it was a lot of pros, and we would just play pickup like they do now at UCLA, like they do in New York. And Mel Daniels was there. Mel Daniels was a big-time Pacers legend. He was on that ABA team, and he was also on when they moved to the NBA. But he was still in the organization. He was working as an assistant coach and a scout, and he was reffing. And I think I had to play point guard in that pick up and play defense against point guards, and also bring the ball up. You know, being a 2, I was, I could handle the ball and everything like that, but I never really had to play point. But he actually saw me in that workout and was like, "You need to check this kid out." And I got drafted based on what he saw. You know, it was like because when I got to Indiana, they weren't even interested in me as a scorer. Because even though my senior year, I averaged like 23.5 or something. In my senior year, my last year of school, Donnie used to always say, "You can be like a Dennis Rodman in this league." And I was like, I don't want to be like a Dennis Rodman. I want to get to shoot the ball, you know. But on that team, there was enough people that can shoot. You know, we had Detlef Schrempf, right? Mm-hmm. 6th Man of the Year, 2 years in a row. Something? Yeah, we had Reggie Miller, we had Chuck Person, Rick Smith, Scott. You know, so there was enough people on the offensive end. So I just think that it was a situation where that wasn't the team that I should have got drafted to. It was, you know, I know Portland was on me pretty big, but Portland's pick was a little bit too late in the second round, you know? So I wasn't around. So if it would have
been up to you, you would have landed on the Lakers?
Yeah, the thing
they were a difficult kind of team back in the days, at least at that time. Magic was gone, the Showtime era was gone.
Yeah, it was 91, and he had just made the announcement, so I didn't really get to play against Magic. So it was tough. But what's funny is I wanted to get picked at. There was a pick at 35. I got picked at 41, I guess. There was a pick at 35, and it was to Minnesota, and that's the pick that I thought I was going to go to. Because it was like they needed a guard, you know what I mean? I would have slid right in, and it would have been nice. And I dropped to like 41 or something like that. But, you know, it's funny. Philly had, you know, contacted me and everything like that. But it wasn't how it is now with only like the first round. It's people that were projected first round winning for workouts and things like that, you know. Nowadays, like, kids are going for workouts. I have a protege that went for like at least 7 or 8 workouts and didn't even get drafted.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's like every week. And then Scott Machado went for like well over 15 to 16 workouts. He was like, he led the league in assists. I want to say 6 or 7 years ago in college. He was an Iona college boy, and he didn't even get drafted, you know. And it was just like, so it's a lot different. The turnover is really big now, you know.
Yeah. Well, you made it. How was your first training camp with the Pacers?
First training camp was good because what happened is when I got drafted, I came in and worked out during the summer. So it was me, it was Reggie for a bit, it was Chuck for a bit, and we were doing summer workouts. And Dale Davis hadn't shown up because he was still holding out on contract, right? So I was there during the summer, lifting, working out with those guys, and then playing pickup at Butler, and it was great. And then the training camp was serious, but I was already acclimated from the summer workouts and then from summer camp and everything like that. And it was good. I thought, and my preseason was pretty solid. It was like 12.5 points a game, and was playing quite a bit. But then I didn't realize that preseason was just, you know, the vets will play just a little bit. And then once the season starts, it was like I saw no time Yeah. So you realize how different it is when you're in it. It was completely different back then than it is now. Now, if you can play, you get to play. You know, the coach will play you. You know. So
that's pretty interesting. That would have been my next question. How difficult is it finding minutes if the first shooting guard is a guy named Reggie Miller?
Yeah, future Hall of Fame, right? And in his prime too. So I think he's like 24
Exactly.
when I was 21. It was very, very difficult. It was in my rookie year. Like if you look at I think my first year I only played 35 games.
35 games, 7 minutes a game, yes.
Yeah, and that 7 minutes wasn't 7 straight minutes either. It was like 2 minutes here, 3 minutes. You know what I mean? I was just basically there to just give him a break because I think he averaged maybe 41 minutes a game, which is a lot.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So they were putting it in. The only time I really got any kind of playing time is on back-to-backs because he would be exhausted, so I would have to play. And then my second year, they wind up drafting one of my good friends, Malik Sealy, in that same position. So when he got drafted, I went into the office and I was like, what the hell? You know, it's just like, because I was always told, you know, your rookie year is going to be that year when you pay your dues. You're not going to get a lot of time. You won't get a lot of calls from the referees and things like that. But it's just development because your second year is when we're actually going to use you. But then they brought another person in and he just slipped right into those minutes right behind Reg. So it was tough. I realized that it was more of a business and the players were just pieces. And if you weren't one of those favorite pieces, you'll be on the outside looking in. And I didn't have a really great relationship with my coach either because I was a competitor. So he would try.
Was it Bob Hill?
Yeah, it was Bob Hill. Yeah, I would try. He would try to tell me that, you know, try to make me believe that I wasn't good enough for the league, you know, and that wasn't the case. It was like anytime I got minutes or it was practice or anything like that, it was just a completely different story. And the media would ask, why aren't you playing Green? Why aren't you playing Kenny Williams? You got young talent on the bench, and these guys aren't seeing any minutes. And he would have to make excuses up, you know. Well, Shawn needs to learn how to play with everybody else and blah, blah, blah. Because I was a scorer. Because I was from the Jordan era. So all I did was do everything that Jordan did. Defend the way he did. Try to block shots, you know. Finish. We just pattern our games after. That's why people give Kobe a lot of flack because he kind of copied Jordan's style. I'm like, why wouldn't you?
Exactly.
He's at the 2, you play 2, why not copy the best 2 to ever play the game? You know? So it was that. We all want, if we were at that position, we wanted to be Jordan, you know? So. And,
was he the guy who influenced you the most in your career?
Ahead. What is that?
Was he the guy who influenced you the most in your career?
Yeah, definitely. And because I had a lot of stuff in my game. Everybody that I had a sky hook with left hand and right hand. You know what I mean?
Ooh.
And so you see how Kyrie finishes with the left and the right?
Mm-hmm.
And coming from New York, playing from we had handle and we could finish around the basket. And then I had the fade away from Jordan, the mid-range game and everything like that. And I could shoot threes, but I wasn't a three-point shooter, you know? I was more, and back then it was more mid-range based. If you look at some of the people that were supposed to be some of the greatest three-point shooters, like look at Reg, he only shot 1.8 threes a game. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, we didn't jack up a lot. There was a lot of mid-range and a lot of things like that, finishing around the basket. So, and because I was really athletic, I was taught to try to get closer and closer to the basket, you know, just try to finish. because we weren't plagued by analytics with, oh, shooting long twos, you know, I'd rather have you shoot.
Yes.
It wasn't any of that. It was put the ball in the basket, you know. I always say that's the variable that never changes. It's like, the game has changed, man. It's a three-point game, blah, blah. I was like, what hasn't changed is put the ball in the basket. You know, whether it's from two, I'd rather take 5 mid-ranges and make 4 than go 2 for 5 from downtown. You know? It's just like, that's just how I am. But I'm shooting more threes now that I'm old. It's just like, you know, I pick up. I just I just worked out on the gun today and put up around, you know, 300 threes from NBA range. And it's so much easier to shoot now with like a machine that rebounds for you and just kicks the ball back at you. You can get so many reps up, you know.
Do you still feel like you could play in today's game? I mean, not conditioning wise, but do you think, okay, if you would get into shape, could you give a team 3 to 5 minutes?
At 49 years old?
Yes, I know it's crazy, but
I'll give it to you straight. If they want me to stand in the corner and wait for somebody to set me up for a 3, and then not have to run back on defense and not have to play any defense, yeah, I'd give them 3 minutes. But if I was 21 years old, my 21-year-old self would thrive in today's game, because that's how my game wasn't for, when I got into the NBA, it wasn't for the physical. It was for the up and down and the high jumpers. And I had a 44-inch vertical. It was just speed and athleticism. I would love to have been in today's game, you know.
You would have fit on the Denver Nuggets in the late 80s, the Mo Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, definitely Doug Moe was shooting. And the thing was, they told me I should have got picked by a West Coast team, more of a running gun and everything like that. And because the East Coast was a little bit, paces wasn't so bad, but when I went to the Sixers, and we had to play against starting 5 of like Derek Harper, John Starks, Anthony Mason, Charles Oakley, and Patrick Ewing. You know what I mean? I get past a cat-like quick Starks, and I go into Mason, Oakley, and Ewing. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay. I remember getting fouled and just like not getting any calls. We played against LA, and I got my nose broken and shot a finger roll, ball went in, got hit in the face, nose broken, bloody, no foul. They called a timeout. Yeah, took me out of the game. My nose was to the side of my face. It was actually Kurt Rambis that broke my nose. He was on a 10-day.
Oh, what a surprise.
Yeah, he was on a 10-day contract as an older vet and broke my nose. And no foul. No flagrant, no nothing. It was just like,
wow. And today's game, you probably would be suspended for the entire season.
I'll get to the line, you know. It was, and the thing is, if you had the hierarchy, you got more calls. That's how it's always been.
Yeah.
Like what they're talking about with Harden, yeah, Harden's going to get those calls. Because if you call it the way you're supposed to, he should go to the line a lot. LeBron should go to the line a lot, but for some reason they don't send him to the line a lot. You know what I mean? And he gets hit, and he only goes to the line 5 to 6 times a game, which is strange, you know? And it's just like, if you've done the work, that's just how it's always been. If you've done the work and you've got to a certain point, you're allowed some leniencies. That's how the league used to work. And it was like, if you are going to play, like when LeBron drops his shoulder and he plays bully ball and kind of like pushes off or does whatever, right? If he gets hit, he's not supposed to get that call. Or if he, you know, because we just let you push. That's why when Harden pushes off and they let him shuffle his feet a little bit, I find that pretty funny, you know, because it's just like, okay, you're letting, how are you going to be able to guard him? You know, if you're not going to call a push-off and you're not going to call the little, you know, this new step back, you know. And so it's funny. I don't know what's going on. I just accepted it. At first, I was being the old man, the get off my lawn, we call it. Get off my lawn, right? But
yeah, the grumpy guy.
Yeah, but now it's great. It's like the better the NBA does, the better my pension does, you know?
Oh, that's a good way to see it.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, I want this brand to be amazing. I want my pension to procure every year, you know? So it's good. Yeah. But I don't watch it as much. Go ahead.
I can't blame you. You mentioned that you played for the 76ers after your 2 seasons with the Pacers. That team won only 25 games, but if you take a closer look to the roster, that has to be one of the most interesting rosters of all time. You had Dana Barros on your team. You had Shawn Bradley on your team.
Yeah.
You had Moses Malone on your team. You had Orlando Woolridge on your team. Clarence Weatherspoon. So many guys who at some point were, Moses Malone is a legend. Dana Barros had, I think, one breakout season where he averaged like 20 points and even was an all-star.
Yeah.
So you had really interesting guys on that team. But who was the guy who impressed you the most?
I learned a lot from Jeff Hornacek.
Okay.
See, this is that team. This is what happened. Tim Perry was on that team. This is what happened. We were picked to win only 25 games, right? By the time we got to All-Star break, like right before I got traded, we were already at 16 games. So it was like, okay, this is not right. That we want them to tank, right? So, and what happened is, if you look at the talent collectively, we could have won some games, but they were making sure that we weren't going to win games, right? What they did is, because Jeff came in and he was averaging about 18, and then at one point I was averaging about 10 points a game. Once they started getting, like my minutes started getting a little consistent, because all I need is I just needed consistency. I think the problem with a lot of players is when you have to guess when you're going to play, you can't prep for it, right? Mm-hmm. So if I know I'm going to get 5 minutes here and a little 5 minutes at the end of the third quarter, right? Then I can prep for those 5 minutes to be the most productive in those 5 minutes. So what was happening is, because when I first got there, Fred Carter was like, we need somebody to come off the bench and average 15 points. And then he pointed right at me. So I was like, I could do that, but you got to give me the minutes and I got to get touches, you know? And I was like, I don't need to start. I don't need any of that stuff, because if I'm starting, I got to share the ball with 4 of the other best players on the team. Because in preseason, I was starting. And I think my first game, I had 16 and 8 against Miami. And then the next game we played Denver back-to-back. And then I dropped about 10 in the first quarter. Hit my first 5 shots. You know what I mean? And the coach was still working out his rotations. So it was I went 5 for 5, came out the game with 1 to 2 minutes to go in the first quarter, and then didn't get back in the game until second half. So it was what's going on? You know? So it's just okay, he's working it out, whatever. And because Jeff Hornacek was holding out for money. So I was playing in his spot. And then initially they were talking about him coming back, him being at the 1 and me being at the 2. Because the reason I didn't work at Indiana is because I had a scorer's mentality. So this going to Philly is, we need somebody to score. Okay, I'm your man. And then if you put Jeff at the 1, me at the 2, I'll give you, if I don't get 15 shots a game, I'll give you at least 19 points a game. You know what I mean? If you know you're getting 15 shots, because 15 points on 15 shots is not impressive. It's like not in the back then it wasn't. Oh, okay, you averaged 20, but it took you 20 shots to get it. You know, if you're getting 20 shots, then you can pick your shots and you take, you don't just jack it up. You take good shots. That's why I don't understand how players, like rotational players, go 2 for like 17 today. Because it's like they're not taking into account shot selection anymore. They're just putting shots up. So that's why you shoot a bad percentage, because you don't value every shot that you take. So back then it was about shot selection. It was about trying to get a good shot and practicing the shots you're going to get in a game and only taking those shots. Like I was told by Bernard King that he practices, he knows, he goes, there's 6 different ways that somebody can guard you. They can guard you forcing you to the right, forcing you to the left, giving you a drive, giving you a jump shot, denying you the ball, right? So he was like, so you got to make sure that you can score going to your right, to your left. You can score from outside. You can score from inside, to the bucket. You can score with your back to the basket, turning over one shoulder, turning over the next shoulder. So all he would do was practice those shots in the spots where he knew he got those shots in a game. So it's like there's no use for him, say, taking a baseline fadeaway if the offense that he ran never got him a shot on the baseline. You know what I mean? It's like a waste of time.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So he taught me about that. He was like, when you work out on your own, practice the shots you know that you're going to get in the game. And just practice those shots. So when they show up, it's not alien territory. So don't just like dribble the ball around and take random shots that you know aren't going to happen. Like if you never get shots at the top of the key in a game, you never get them, there's no reason to practice, to waste a lot of time practicing those shots. And he taught me how to be efficient, So I knew which shots I was going to get in a game. So I could come in, I know I can get the shot off the curl, I know I can get it back to, back to the basket, things like that. So back then, it was me and Dana were really tight. But what a lot of people don't understand is before Shawn Bradley tore his ACL,
he was good.
He was a beast. I seen this kid grab a rebound, dribble up the court. He went behind his back once, behind his back again. And this is when anytime a big starts to dribble, the guards salivate and they're like, I'm going to steal this, because the dribble is high. You know what I mean? So I'm going to steal this. He went behind his back once, went behind his back again, and then did a Statue of Liberty dunk where his first step was at the NBA 3 line. His next step, his heel was on the foul line. And then he just put the ball way up and, Statue of Liberty one-handed and dunked it. And I was like, take a play.
Well, I actually feel sorry for Shawn because, just as you mentioned, he was really good before, but for whatever reason, people really don't care or just forgot about it. And they still say that he was a waste of talent. I totally disagree.
Yeah, they associate him with just getting dunked on and things like that, when they don't realize that if you're a shot blocker, like a prolific, he was prolific too, you're going to get dunked on. It's as simple as that.
Yep.
Because you're contesting. He would contest like 90, 91, 92% of the shots at the rim when he was in the game.
So nobody talks about his blocks that he actually made.
Yeah, they don't talk about it. But, it's easier to tear somebody down. Like, I get kids on Instagram and they're like, yo, who are you? You only average 4 points such and such in your career. I go, yeah, but I only played like 7 minutes a game. You know what I mean? It's not like I played 25 minutes a game and walked away with 4 points. I gave you the 4.8 in a small amount of time. Like I would get in for 2 minutes and then have like 6 points in the 2 minutes, And it's just like, but all they want to do is just focus on, they don't look at the big picture. They don't look at, there's 5 players and there's only 1 ball. Everybody's not going to get 20 shots. Everybody doesn't have the same opportunity. Everybody doesn't have the same usage rate. So, I always tell a lot of kids to just, yeah, I made it to the NBA. It was a great accomplishment, but focus on what I'm proud about is the work that I put in to get to that, you know, to get to that opportunity to play, you know? And then when I went overseas, I got overseas and never really wanted to come back to the NBA.
That would have been my last question. Yeah, you played basically almost all over the world. What country was the country where you had the most fun?
I had the most fun in Istanbul, Turkey.
I knew it.
Yeah.
They're crazy, but they're really passionate about their sport.
Yeah, and it's a great party town. I was there for 2 years, and I always had this thing about, I was in Milan. Milan was great. Jerusalem was great. Like, Israel was great. You know what I mean? Spent time in Tel Aviv. And I was in Venezuela. Venezuela was awesome. Philippines was great. It was just being able to play basketball and just travel around the world. It was a great experience. And when I got to Turkey, that was the first year I was ever on a European Cup team. So we played one game like in Turkey, and then during the week we played in a different country. We went to Barcelona, we played a team in London Towers. We played a team in Portugal. We played Croatia Split. We played in Moscow. You know what I mean? So we were moving around and getting to see the world just through basketball. And I never really wanted to come back. And I kind of stopped playing really early because my son from my first marriage, he was super young and I never really got to see him. So it was just like 10 months out of the year, I would be over in Europe, and 2 months out of the year, I would see him. And it was the formative years, and there was no way to grow up, have him grow up without even having a relationship with me, you know? So it's just like, I got tired. And they work you like a dog over there. You practice twice a day. So you're getting like 5 hours of training in. You're lifting weights as well. And so it was just, I would be exhausted. It was so much training. But your game elevates so much because the volume of training that you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Shawn, if fans want to get in touch with you, I'm pretty sure you are socially active. Where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram and Twitter at @TheShawnGreen, TheSeanGreen. I didn't want that name because I think it's kind of heinous to be the anything, but I couldn't get Shawn Green because it was some guy named Shawn Yang, Asian dude, has it. Doesn't use the account, hasn't posted any pictures, has 42 followers, so I had to be the Shawn Green, which is kind of
just wanted that name.
Yeah, so that's where you can find me. Yeah.
All right, Shawn. It was great having you on the show. Thanks a lot, man.
All right. Thank you.